Tony, who you guys can't see and hear, but I can see him and hear him. I think he said there were like 40 RSVP, so that looks like we're getting people coming in right on time, which is nice. Um, and we will get started right away. So thank you so much for spending some of your morning with me on this Friday. Let me hear in the chat. So on the right side of your screen, you should see a button for a chat. We're going to use this a bunch to make this interactive. Uh, if you would in the chat, please share with us where you're calling in from today. I would love to hear where folks are joining us from. We got Toronto. We got Toronto in the chat. Where else we got? We got Northern New Jersey, Calgary. Cool. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and Tony, producer Tony, who's manning the chat for me. He's in Queens. He's like right down the road. Um, but that's great. Cool. And we're up to 14. We got people joining in. Denitra, it's good to see you again. They joined our call we had on Tuesday with one of our longest using power users. Great session on how to build a newsletter. I highly recommend that. Watching the replay when that one's live. It should be live in a couple days. Um, we got Chicago. Amazing. I'm sure it's cold. It's freezing cold here. No fun. Cool. Well, we like to do the little intro as people join. We're up to about 20, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Next step in the chat, if you could drop in kind of how many subscribers you have and what your goals are, whether you're launching a newsletter, migrating an existing newsletter, just dropping in the chat kind of what your goals are and how many subscribers you have is helpful for us to kind of read the room and understand what we want to focus on today. So while you're doing that, I'll just give you guys a little bit of orientation of what we're doing today. So the Jumpstart with beehiiv webinar is all about getting you acclimated and familiar with the platform. So this is going to be a fairly in-depth workshop style webinar. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. We're going to be walking through the setup and operation of a beehiiv account. And it's going to be like super in depth. I'm going to go through all the different features, let you know where they are, just so you know ahead of time. Cool. So we got a bunch of people just thinking about launching, just launching. Zero. Haven't done it for years. Perfect. Okay. Ranch has got 8,000. Perfect. Just launching. So we got a bunch of beginners. That's great. That's going to be perfect for the session. And even Ranch, who maybe has some experience, this will be a good orientation of how to work your way around the platform. So the way that the agenda is going to work today is I'm going to be covering basically the basic settings and setup, so all of the housekeeping stuff first. And then we're going to jump into the editor. I'm going to go through the different features contained within the editor that make it kind of like the crown jewel of the platform and really like the centerpiece of the experience. From there, we'll go through all the different settings so that you can understand what the different publishing settings mean. So, having joined beehiiv, you may be aware that we have not just a best-in-class email, sending and email marketing tool for newsletters, but we also have a very powerful and competitive content management system, or CMS, web side as well. So if you think about newsletters like Morning Brew and newsletters that have really made the jump to be more full-fledged media brands, they all have a component of web presence, because it's really good to be able to share not just your content with the subscribers who are going to receive it in their inbox, but also be able to share that content to the web so that people can discover it and they can read it kind of async. So when you send a newsletter, the only people getting it are the people who are already on your list. It can be really useful for people who are not yet on your list to see that content, which is why we launched the platform having a website. And as we've grown and as we've listened to the needs of our users, that's become more and more powerful and more of a centerpiece. And so that's led to the point where some users even use beehiiv as a blog primarily with email sending capabilities. The line has really become blurred. So if you're here looking to publish content to the web, we'll show you how to do that. We'll show you how to publish to email, how to do both, how to choose your audiences for those email sends, and so forth. And then from there, we'll get into the features that are contained on that left side of your screen. So how to look through your audience, how to set up like tags and custom fields, all the way through to our growth, and then finishing up with monetization tools. We'll also jump into some of the design features, although I'm not going to go super heavy into those because we're about to launch our new web builder in about a week and a half on the 22nd. Maybe that's 2 weeks. But it's a completely brand new web experience we've built from the ground up, and so I don't want to cover that. It'll just probably be more confusing than helpful, in that it's going to change completely in a week or two, and we'll have obviously documentation and tutorials on how to use that when it comes out. But we're really excited for it. Marks the kind of advent of beehiiv really having a standalone web builder tool. We expect to use this tool to compete with companies like Wix and Squarespace and Webflow. It's that powerful and flexible. So very, very excited for that. In the chat, once more, before we finally get started and start going through the actual workshop, if there's one thing you'd like to get from this session this morning, one question you want answered, one thing you want to learn, figure out how to do, what would that be? If you just drop it in the chat so I can kind of make sure that we are covering everybody's needs, and making sure that we are, making sure that everybody has their needs met. Cool. So why choose beehiiv? Cool. Email newsletters make weekly work easier. Perfect. Activity reports. Step by step. Yep. Cool. Learn the basics. Great. Cool. This is great. Well, good news is you're in the right place. These are all things that we will be covering today. And so if I don't explicitly cover them as we go through the workshop, then we will have time at the end to answer some questions, and then we'll get going from there. In the meantime, Tony's going to share a link to our Q&A kind of intake. So if you follow the link that he will share in just a minute, we ask that if you have any questions as I go, we will take moments to pause and answer questions throughout the presentation. But if you could drop questions there, it'll help us make sure that we address all your questions, because I don't necessarily look at the chat throughout the presentation. It's easier for me to go through the stuff and then kind of pause. And so if you have questions as we go, drop them in that Q&A link, and we will address them after each section. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. You guys make this all worth it. It makes, obviously, if you guys didn't show up, we wouldn't have an audience to do this for. And so you guys are really the real VIPs here, and just really blessed to be able to share this platform. My name is EJ White. I'm the head of growth here over at beehiiv. So, all things, marketing and advertising and growth related. If you saw an ad or something and joined beehiiv because of that, that's my team. Also the first employee, so I've been here for almost 3 years. 3 years in February. I joined the company a couple months after the product launched publicly. Joined the founding team in building this amazing platform. So I should be able to answer any questions that you may have. Kind of been there, seen that, or been there, done that, seen everything, been around the block, all those good kind of sayings and metaphors, and happy to be of service. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. Awesome. All right, so for today's session, I'm going to be using a publication that I've set up previously that I use, that I kind of sometimes run, sometimes don't. It's like a vacation, travel style newsletter that is meant to basically showcase these like super luxurious destination vacations, like the best money can buy. And so I've used a combination of just sharing it on my socials as well as some paid ads to grow to just 300 subscribers. It's not huge. I haven't sent a post in quite a while, but the reason why I use this is that it is entirely configured with all of the web stuff. Again, this is all going to change, so I'm not going to dwell on like how we get the design like this. But when we do talk about kind of what beehiiv can do and kind of how rich and engaging the content can be for web as well as email. I like to use this, as an example because it really, uses all of the different features from, obviously text and headings and links and images to, conditional fields. So if you, for example, are a paid subscriber to this newsletter, you don't see the ads. And so we're able to do that by using some of the visibility settings and combining that with the paid subscription functionality of beehiiv. So if you're a paid subscriber, you just see the content, you get an audio version, and no ads. In this case, if you are not a paid user, you're going to see this call to action to upgrade. You're also going to see the ads. Aside from that, things like columns to just make your content a little bit more visually interesting. We'll go through all the different functionality of the editor later on, but polls to engage users to collect feedback, understand what they might want to hear more about, just collect feedback about what they're writing. There's some trivia here that I like to deploy to kind of make this a little bit more interesting. So there's always like a trivia question. We have rich embeds for social media. So these are the types of embeds that, obviously this looks exactly like the native embed for Instagram because it is. And so if you click on this, it'll take you to the Instagram post and you can engage with it, add comments, like it, whatever. Lastly, we have comments. Obviously, the normal kind of web publisher stuff you'd like to see or you'd expect to see. So continue reading, add comments and so forth. But I like to use this as an example just to kind of showcase everything that beehiiv can do. So before we get to that stage, we're going to start with the settings. And so this is going to be something. Some of these will be filled out by virtue of the answers you provided when you went through the initial sign-up process. Give me 1 second. Whenever I'm on screen share, this takes a little bit longer on my internet. But we're going to start with the settings first, and once we go through the settings, then we'll work to the editor and so forth. So when we make it to the settings, it's important to know that there's kind of two different. I can drop the link to the Chateau de Cham newsletter. It's vacationvoyeur.com is the URL of the one that we're kind of this example. But when you get to the settings, there's two different kind of buckets of settings. One is the workspace settings, which is kind of your overall like, company-wide settings. These are going to basically kind of progress down to the individual publications that you own. So if you can imagine kind of the structure here, we have the workspace, and then the workspace can have multiple newsletters within it, or multiple publications as we call it, because they could be just a web blog or something like that. But this workspace with my freelance freelance entity name holds all of these different publications. And so when we get down to the publication settings, those are found up here, which we'll get into in a second. But at the workspace level, you'll be able to see an overview of your account, the name of the workspace, manage your team here if you need to invite users. You can set the permission levels and user roles. We have lots of documentation on like what those different user roles mean and what the permission levels mean. But you can add team members here. When it comes time to modify your plan, whether you want to upgrade, downgrade, get more subscribers on the same plan, etc., you can go to this billing section here, update billing info, update your plan name, etc. And if you're more developer-minded, we do integrate with over 10,000 apps through tools like Zapier, in Zapier without code. If you're a developer, we then integrate with any tool that can integrate with an API, and you can find your API key and the publication ID here. So if you're a developer, you'll know what those things mean. And so getting into the actual publication settings, which is usually what we're most interested in, you're going to jump into the general info. You'll be able to set your newsletter name here, your one-liner, just the quick description of what you're writing about. You can set the publication logo, so this will be used across your site, as well as the default thumbnail. So when you post an article to the web and you have a link that's associated with it, if you don't add a custom thumbnail, this is what shows up. If you don't add any default thumbnail, it'll just be kind of like a gray, gray image. We're working on kind of creating a default kind of like Substack, but right now, highly recommend you setting the default thumbnail preview there. Publication tags, these help us identify and understand what you're writing about. So if you want to get access and be recommended through our recommendations network, through our ad platform, etc., it's really highly advised that you add at least one content tag. The more the better, in terms of like, as long as they correctly describe your newsletter. We have language settings, default time zones, and then default subscribe button text. You know, this is just going to be the default that shows up on your buttons across the website. Um, if you are running a newsletter for something like a PTA or a you know, maybe it's a investor newsletter or something like investor communications newsletter, and you want it to be private, you can check this box right here, this toggle, and that'll make it so that only users who are subscribed can see your content. And new subscribers won't be able to subscribe. It'll just say this is a private publication. If you want, maybe you have a, like I said, a PTA or something where you know, people may discover your newsletter and you want to give selective access, you can do so by checking this toggle saying, you know, requires subscriber approval. This will allow users to subscribe, and then you can manually approve them or deny them. Lastly, on our Max plan, which is our higher paid tier for self-serve, on that plan, you can toggle to remove the beehiiv branding. So this is where it says, you know, powered by beehiiv at the bottom. If you're a marketer, these UTM parameters are relevant to you, but essentially we just tag all of the links on the web so that you can see, and you know, websites can see like, that you sent them traffic. And if you're sending traffic to another site, you might want to modify these. But if you're not a marketer, this is best left untouched. For the emails themselves, when you're sending things out, we have the settings here to configure how those show up in the inbox. So you can set the sender name. This is how it's going to show up in recipients' inboxes. If you want users to be able to reply to you and be, you know, see those responses, you can set a email here. This is just going to be when they hit the reply button where those messages get sent to. If you want to update the details at the bottom of your newsletter, such as the address, don't stalk me, or the copyright, you know, you can modify that here. And lastly, in this view at least, we have a couple preset emails that you can modify. So one would be a welcome email. Every user, regardless of whether they're on our paid plan or on the free plan, gets one autoresponder email, which is the welcome email. This will send automatically when somebody subscribes if it's turned on. This functionality can also be replaced by the automations function, which is why I don't have it turned on here, because I'm doing the welcome email through my automations tool. But if you choose to be on a free plan, we do provide that functionality for all users. This is just a single thank you, welcome email that sends to them when they subscribe. You can configure that by clicking this. Double opt-in is another email-focused feature where when a user subscribes, they receive an email saying, essentially, hey, we see that you subscribed to this newsletter. Please click this button to confirm that you want to be subscribed. It's basically double meaning the second layer to ensuring that they want to be subscribed to your newsletter. It's a best practice that deliverability experts recommend. It is going to slow growth by about 20% because about 20% of people just won't click that button. But it does help make sure that you have a really, really clean list of users that are engaged and are receiving your emails. It's not required though. You can toggle that on and off. And obviously you can modify the copy of that email here. And then associated with that, if a user does not click that button within 48 hours to confirm their subscription, if you turn on the smart nudge feature, it'll send them a follow-up saying, we saw you subscribed, but you haven't, opted in. Click here again to opt in. But this would only send if they didn't confirm their subscription the first time. If you're coming from somewhere like Substack or Ghost or MailChimp or a selection of other platforms, you can actually import your content automatically. So by clicking this button, you'll be given the list of tools that we integrate with for a content import. You can follow the instructions on screen to bring your your content into beehiiv in just a couple clicks. If you have subscribers already, so Ranch, if you want to import those 8,000 subscribers, you can do so in this screen. When you start that import, by default, you'll have 10 subscribers you can import. And by doing a simple verification, you can up that limit to 10,000. If you, for whatever reason, need to go past that limit, we do require a little bit of additional verification. Then, it's just a simple form that you fill out here, and we can increase that import limit. If you ever want to leave for any reason, we don't hold you hostage. You can take all of your content with you. If you do set up paid stuff, all of that runs through Stripe accounts that you control. So unlike some other platforms that, when you create the Stripe account, they control the Stripe account and you can't take it with you, so you're kind of locked in. It's not our style. Any of the data within your platform you can export and take with you at any time. Domain. So we had a question in the chat about setting up a custom domain. This is where you're going to do it. We have a couple different settings here. Uh, you can come in here and there's three different ways you can set up the custom domains. One is the custom domain of your website. There's the custom domain that your email is sending from. And then brand new, and I'm actually not sure if we've fully launched this live yet, but it will be coming if it's not already. You can actually set the URL of the links that users click on. So all of the links that are sent in an email are wrapped in a tracking link, so we know that the link was actually clicked. By default, those are a beehiiv domain tracking link, but if you want to set yours to be custom branded, that's something that we do support. So those are the three types of custom domains you can add to your account. When you add the specific subdomain or domain to this process, like we have a vendor that we use that walks you through it, sets all of the DNS settings with GoDaddy or Squarespace or whoever you use. So that process is really simple. I'm not going to go through it step by step, but just know that we do have lots of documentation around how to use the tool. We set all of your DNS records and your things like SPF and DKIM, the things that make sure that you're going to get delivery. What we don't set is DMARC because it's a little bit more sensitive and users should be aware of like what the settings are that they're setting up there. So there is like a call to action to say, hey, your process isn't done. You need to add a DMARC record. We have all the instructions around doing that. Just follow what happens on screen, and you'll be walked through all of that. Seeing something from Denitra. If you start on beehiiv and want to use Substack or X, you can share the content. Yeah, I mean, you could take it with you, and I don't know if other platforms have an import for beehiiv content, but we have an importer for them, so you could go back and forth if you wanted to. FG, how can my old emails be sent to new subscribers? Just hopped on, so you might have already answered this. 5 subscribers. So old emails sent to new subscribers. If you're talking about like old emails that you have in beehiiv, you could send those to those new subscribers by duplicating them. We'll get into that in a minute. If you want to provide some clarification, I'm not 100% sure what that is asking totally. Okay, cool. So GB, what do we have to do on this part? So if you haven't set up a custom domain, there's like instructions for the blank state of how you do this, but you basically just follow the instructions on screen. Let me see if there's one that doesn't have it here. Let's see, maybe the fit. Well, yeah, the fit, I think. I don't want to spend too much time on this specific part, but there are a lot of questions, which is why we have it. So this is by default what it looks like. Your web domain, email, sending domain. If you want to set up a custom domain, you come through here, you add the custom domain for your website. If you want to set up a new email domain, you can do that here. But yeah, I mean, this basically explains what all of these settings are. So in this case, your web domain is by default this beehiiv one. If you want to enter a new one, you could do www. If I owned this domain, I could do thefit.com. And then, or if I just wanted to do, actually, I probably would want to do thefit.com without the www. And then I could come in here and say, redirect the www to my website. So it's going to be www. It's going to be redirected to here. Go to next. This is going to be the email domain. So I do something like mail.thefit.com. Cool. And then this is just saying when I finish setup, it's going to use this tool to connect with my host and is going to set all these up for me. But again, it's just reading what each of these are and choosing the option you want. Cool. Webhooks. If you're a developer, we do offer webhooks on our premium plan, which you'll get access to on our trial. I usually say at the beginning, if you're not on a trial yet, definitely start your trial. That'll be really, really helpful as we get through some of these features, specifically in the editor section and the feature parts. But this is one of our premium features. You can connect these webhooks to other tools so that between our API and webhooks, you can have data coming and going to and from beehiiv with any tool that you might be using across your stack, keeping things synced, keeping subscribers synced, letting other tools know when something has happened, like an upgrade, a downgrade, subscribe, what have you. Yeah, sure. So up here, I mean, the best practice is basically to follow these instructions around the sizing. We have the recommended sizes here. White background or colored background, whatever you choose. But we don't recommend like the clear background, um, because you can see what it looks like. I mean, it's not going to break anything. But if there's specific questions around the thumbnail best practices, you can drop them in the chat. But it's essentially like just what you would want to show users to see if they're sharing your link, or your logo. As we get into some of our paid features, as I mentioned before, all of our paid features run through Stripe accounts, and so if when you start connecting those accounts, you can manage the Stripe accounts through this payments accounts link, and then you get to RSS feeds. We have two different features around RSS. You can give your RSS feed link to your subscribers so they can consume your newsletter through any kind of RSS tool that they might be using. We also have a feature that's part of our Max plan that allows you to populate content within your newsletter based on content from an RSS feed. So if you're a news company and you're publishing news to the web and you want to pull those news stories into your newsletter, like Time Magazine does, we're launching with Time Magazine. You can do that. So there's that there. So that kind of covers the settings. We'll get out of that. Some of it's a little bit, between the ears, a little bit boring. If there's any questions you have, feel free to drop in the chat. Tony will drop in documentation. I don't go super deep into those because every use case is a little bit different. It's very, very easy to get in the weeds with specific users, specific use cases. But, we've had more than 500, 600,000 people use beehiiv, and these are very tested. We are very, very flexible with what we can offer and provide in terms of customization there. Cool. Okay, so FG, you could send them manually. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have the web portion of our site so that new subscribers can see past editions. I don't know if you sent those through beehiiv. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not necessarily super typical to like resend past emails to new subscribers, like even if there's just 5. Usually what we recommend is just having those hosted on the web, and so if they're interested, they can view your web archive, and then read those. So yeah, I see that Tony responded to that too. All right, so from here, we've set up the settings of your account. Here's the dashboard. You're going to see your active subscribers, open rate, click-through rate, a graph showing the growth of all time right now. If I go back to 12 months, I think it might show a little bit better. Yeah, so you can see. Oh, wow. I started this. Oh, no, this is the fit. Wrong one. I was going to say, I can't believe it's been a year since I started that one, and it hasn't been. All right, so if I go to 12 months, you can see when I started it, and then growth over time, click-through rate, open rate, et cetera, where users are coming from, and so forth. If we click on audience, it's going to give me a little bit of a deeper dive into where audience is coming from, as well as like when subscribers have come in. Engagement is going to show me engagement of my newsletters and just give me a quick snapshot of how these have performed over time. And the monetization is going to show me the money I've made between paid subscriptions and boosts. We do have ad payouts coming soon. Yeah, and so from there, if I wanted to start writing a newsletter, I'd click on Start Writing. And it's going to take me directly into our editor experience. And this is where we'll open the next section. So we're going to transition into the editor portion of this chat. So if you have any questions about anything we've just covered, please drop that in the chat now. And Tony will address, and anything that maybe requires a little bit more explanation, he will flag to me. And apologies in advance. I realize I can hear him and he talks to me, and sometimes like when I answer a question, I'm like kind of midstream, I respond to him. I forget that you guys can't hear him. So apologies if that's a little bit jarring or the context is missing. I will try to remember to restate the question. And if it is unclear, if I forget, please don't hesitate to drop in the chat. Be like, what the hell are you on about? I don't understand what you're saying. So cool. Just checking the chat real quick for any questions. There we go. All right, so when you start a post, you're going to be greeted with this beautiful blank slate, wide open field for you to start, painting painting with your words, your beautiful magnum opus, whatever. Your masterpiece is where it begins. So different components here. We've talked a little bit about thumbnails. If you want to add a thumbnail to this post, whether it's an email or web, you can click here to add that thumbnail. You can add content tags. These are content tags are ways for you to organize your content on your website. So if you go here, you can see under the archive, there's these different tags. These are kind of how the content tags manifest and can allow you to allow users to more easily navigate your content. So if you want to set content tags, you can do so by clicking there. Your post title is going to default to be your subject line. It's also going to be the title that shows up on the website, and it's going to be the H1 of your article if you're an SEO type person. Your subtitle is going to default to be the preview text, also going to be the subtitle, the subtext of like the posts on the web. So in that case, this is the title and this is the subtitle. Lastly, you can set authors here. You can set no authors. You can, set multiple authors. It doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want here. You'll notice that there's these little eyeball, icons here. So these have to do with the visibility settings. These indicate visibility or non-visibility. So if I go to preview, you're not going to see much here, except for the title. There's no subtitle, so that's disappeared. But you can see my byline right here, and that's because I'm showing that there's an author. In this preview view, you can see what it's going to look like on the web, on the email, and on mobile. And so here, if I take this and I add an author, and I show this inside the email, before it was gone, and now it's showing up. So by default, I believe we always show it on the web, unless there might be a setting in the web settings where you can turn it off. But it's like very normal to show it on the web. But if you do want to hide this visibly, you can hide this in the email as well. You can hide this in the email, show it in the email. Just some quick ways to do that. So from here, once you've set your title, subtitle, you've got your author set up, you've got your thumbnail set up, you've got your content tags, you're ready to start actually producing content. And so the centerpiece of our content production flow is this widget palette, so to speak. So this is going to show you kind of the capability, all of the different capabilities of beehiiv, and this is really one of the areas in which we shine. So these are going to be the basic elements that everyone has access to, so things like lists, tables. You can group different of these elements to sections and style them specifically, create a table of contents. You can put a subscriber break, which is going to require users to be able to see everything above the subscriber break, but they're going to have to subscribe to see anything below it. You can add files if you're creating lead magnets. You can create a file download that maybe sits below a subscriber break. So in order to get the lead magnet, users have to subscribe, and then they can access the file download. There's a million different things you can do, but it's this is kind of the center of what makes beehiiv so powerful. So aside from these basic widgets, you have headings, embeds. So we talked about those different embeds. I showed you the Instagram one, but you have options from all of these major platforms. If they're not here, they don't actually offer a public like API for like visualizing. So for example, like LinkedIn doesn't offer like an external visualization for posts, and neither does Facebook. So that's why those aren't listed here. But the ones that do offer those are listed here. And then, of course, you have our premium widgets. So these will be accessible. Most of them will be accessible through your trial. But things like the AI writing feature, so you can augment your writing, make it longer, shorter, change the tone, translate it using our AI features. If you want to drop in a poll, you can do that. So I showed you the kind of the polls of how you collect feedback or offer trivia. If you run premium subscriptions, you can have a paywall break saying, okay, anybody who is a free user can see above this certain point, and then you put the paywall break, and then only the paid users can see below it. For anything where you can't replicate your design based on our no-code tools, HTML snippets can be really useful for dropping in any kind of custom or customization or custom code that you may want to include. Lastly, we talked about that RSS functionality, one of the flagship features of our, of our Max plan. But here, if you have an RSS feed that you want to bring in content from, you can add that RSS feed, and it'll visualize all of that content there. So if we just start writing, so hello world is like a common thing for developers to write as their first code. When I highlight this text, we're also going to see this menu, which is going to allow us to kind of tune the content and add, the typical text editor. So in this case, bold, italic, underline, strike through, highlight. Highlighting is fun. You can kind of make it a different color in the background. You can add links. You can turn it into like make it look kind of like code. Superscript, subscript. Change it to a header. Bullet points. You can make it a block quote. So in this case, this is one of our block quote styles. You can see this one kind of adds this above it. Just makes it a little bit more visually interesting and pulls it out of the content of the text if you're doing something maybe more journalistic. And then some basically like local overrides. So we're going to get into the design and how you set your global settings in a minute through our designer. But if there's some reason you want to do like a local override of your master settings, you can do so here. And then one of the cool features I'll get into a minute in depth is our collaboration features, but if you want to leave a comment, you can do that for your team. And then lastly, this is how you access those AI features. Before we get into the settings up here, which includes some of the collaboration features, I do want to call out this menu right here. So this little 6-dot menu holds a ton of functionality to really kind of help you tune and fine tune your content. It's a little bit of more of an advanced thing, so I don't go into a ton of detail in this call. But if you want more flexibility over grouping content to sections and styling groups and blocks of content, you can do so by grouping different elements into a section and then editing that section as a whole. Visual settings, you can customize the spacing that's going to be above, below, and side to side. You can add borders and change the border radius and thickness. You can change the background color, change the text color, change the border color. And then in terms of visibility, you can choose whether you want certain content to be shown on the website or not, shown in an email or not, and then the type of user, whether they should be shown content or not. So you can say, don't show this content to anonymous users on the web. There's no such thing as an anonymous email subscriber because you have to have their email in order to send them the email. So that's why it's specifically to the web. And then you can show or hide specifically from free users or paid users. So you might hide content that is exclusive to paid users from the free users. Alternatively, if you're kind of an ad-supported newsletter, you may hide the ad block from your paid users and only show that to the free users. Lastly, through things like our referral program, you can basically block or set visibility around whether somebody has a certain number of referrals. So if there's content you say, hey, in order to access this content, you have to share the newsletter with one person. You could do this and say, the number of people they have to share it with is greater than 0. So don't sleep on these settings. They're very, very powerful, although they can be a little bit overwhelming for beginners because they are a little bit more advanced, but they're really crucial to design if you really, really want to get granular. So moving on from the actual like editing experience, we have these settings up here. Backlinks are one of the ways in which you can take content and you can reference it in your article. So by using these square brackets, you can basically open up the menu for backlinks, and this is just going to give you these links to all of your other posts. So if I click this, it's by default going to pull in this link. I can change it. This is the title, so I could just be like this article if I just wanted to change it to be, something more innocuous. So like imagine this was in the middle of a sentence. It would say, go check out this article, but you can see that it's linked. The other thing you can do is with curly braces, if you if you maybe import your subscribers like first name and last name, or you collect that once the user signs up, you can use these curly brackets to deploy custom fields. So in this case, I have a custom field for first name. So I'm going to type that. This is the name of the custom field, and then I'm going to default it to say friend, and then close that up. So now you can see that it's a custom field because it's kind of gray. And if I go to preview, by default it's going to say friend because I'm not masquerading or simulating as anybody. But if I come in here and I type in my own email, come on, show me. There we go. Because I've already signed up and given my own name to this newsletter, it's going to now replace this with EJ. So it's a great way, it's the easy way for you to customize your newsletter. So outside of backlinks and those customizations, so comments, makes it really easy to comment. So I can say, we'll add a comment here. I don't actually have Tony in this one, but I could say something like, Tony, please revise this. if he was a user within this organization, it could actually tag him, just like Google Docs. But in this case, he could come back and say, what do you want me to change it to? And so it's going to show up as me commenting because obviously I'm the same user, but if he had left this comment, it would show from him. I can resolve that. It removes it from the editor, and then will show up to me if I show all, but maybe I only want to see the open comments that I need to answer to. I can filter and change that. So really, really powerful collaboration features. And then the other part here would be if you are working with a team, you can see up here this like EJ or this EW icon. So this editor works fully, just like a Google Doc where like you can see if there's like 5 people in it, you can see them all, you can see their names up here. And just like a Google Doc, you can see their icons moving around. You can see in real time the content that they're adding if you had multiple users in here. So really, really valuable and useful for teams. And then that leads into this version control. Say you do have, a team that you're working with. They go wild and they change something, completely. There's no version of histories because I just made this article a few minutes ago. But say there's like you write an article, you send it to somebody for revision, they completely mess it up and you need to revert it, you can come back in this version history, and just like Google Docs, you can select the older version to restore if you need to. Lastly, somebody mentioned at the beginning of the call, templates. So once you've created a post and say you really love the outline, the format, kind of how it looks and feels, and you don't want to necessarily have to do that again, you can actually save that as a template. And so by saving as a template, it will automatically save all of the content that's in the editor, and you can basically start future posts from that. And I'll show you what a real template looks like in just a moment. Lastly, if I click on this, it's going to take me to the newsletter builder, which I will go to in a second. I do want to show you the, so if I go from here and start use from template, I've created these, default templates, and so this is what this template looks like. I can edit the template by clicking edit, or I can use it and it's going to create a new post. But this allows me to start from a starting point that I don't have to redo all of this content. So going back to, go back one more. Cool. Going back here, if I do click this the settings button, it's going to take me to our newsletter builder, which is where we set all of the design for the newsletter. So here, it's going to basically provide a mock-up of what the newsletter is going to look like with all of the different functionalities. So if I close this accordion, you're going to see all of the different things you can edit, and these each correspond to a section here. So background is going to be these backgrounds, body text is going to be the settings around this body text, header text is going to be this copy up here, or sorry, header text is going to be this copy right here, these headers, so H1, H2 through H6. Email header is going to be the settings up here. Buttons are going to be shown right here, the settings around buttons. Content breaks are these horizontal breaks right here. Images are how images show up. Lists are how these types of lists and these types of lists show up. Block quote variants, these are the 3 variants of block quote. And then embeds, this is just if you have a link that's not like a social media embed, this is how they show up. And then tables are just typical like tables for visualizing data. So within each of these, they're fully customizable. You can set all of the settings around how these look. It's going to update in real time to show you what it's going to look like in your editor. And when you're done, you can hit the Save Changes button and it will save those changes. Now, you might ask, why do we do this? This is a little bit different than most other platforms, and we do this for a really, really good reason. Our philosophy, and from the feedback that we received from users early on, as well as our own experience in being newsletter publishers, is that one of the most annoying kind of features of other email platforms is that they really force you to do the design while you do the writing process. So it's like, if you're in MailChimp, for example, it's like you're writing the email, but you're also then able to and like needing to adjust the padding and the sizing and the spacing and whatnot while you write. And that's not conducive to the writing process. For us, what we have found from feedback and from ourselves, again, is that being able to just write everything and get the content out and then not have to worry about the design is a much smoother experience and actually saves a ton of time. And so what I mean by that is you write the content, it's in this kind of blank slate format where it's not formatted. You can see what each of these elements are. So you can see this is an I think this is an H2, I believe. Yeah, H2. This is body text. This is like our pull widget. You can see what the widgets are. It's like not confusing around like what the elements are, but they're not styled. They're not distracting visually, and they're not taking away from the process of just getting the writing out. But when you hit the preview button, it's going to take the writing that you've created and it's going to merge it with the design settings that you've set that one time, and it's going to produce this very, very uniform, very consistent looking design that from article to article, from email to email, there's not going to be any variation in how things appear. You can go back, obviously, and make tweaks over time. Say, you know, I sent out an email, I think I'd like a little bit more space, and you can always go fix that. But the idea being you set up the design one time, and you don't have to go back and do it again. So you can see this is what like that content and then merged with the design looks like on the web, in the email itself, and then on desktop and in mobile for each of those. So I see a question here about templates. We don't support templates right now in the current version, but Tony already answered. It is coming with the new website editor. We are launching with several website templates. We're also going to have some newsletter templates that are coming out as well. And just a heads up, the design for the newsletter builder is actually going to be updating to make it much more user friendly. Right now there's a lot of settings, but we're working on streamlining that process to make it a little bit more user friendly. And eventually we plan to have like an import if you're coming from another platform, like being able to like upload an image or a file and us basically pulling all of that stuff and being able to import your settings for you. Very, very high priority for us. So from there, we've gotten this content ready, and now we're ready to send. So we're going to move to the next stage of the presentation. First time I did it, you could click on the image, and the image would expand. The second nothing happens when you click on the image. I'm not sure. So to set a link within an image, you would go here and select this link, and you put it here. I'm not sure. We can help troubleshoot. Hey Benjamin, we're covering more functional stuff about like how to get your newsletter set up and actually like the nuts and bolts of like getting up and sending. If we have some time at the end, we can get into that. But we have a ton of webinars that maybe Tony can drop in here that are actually more about growth and kind of those topics. This is purely focused more around you're a new beehiiv user. How can you actually get your account set up and get your newsletter set up and be ready to send? The growth strategy and marketing strategy is a different topic that we cover every week, typically on Tuesdays and sometimes Tuesdays and Thursdays with various webinars, but we can drop some of the past ones that we've done. Perfect, and thank you, Tony, for dropping that link to the help section. So we're ready we've written the content, we've written our article. You can see here, it's ready to go. So what next? Next, we're gonna hit the next button, and it's gonna take us to our audience page. So this is where I discussed at the very beginning of the call, being able to set a web audience, being able to set a email audience, being able to set both. And so in this case, just following top to bottom, we're going to look at the email audience. In this case, right now, we've selected all of our free subscribers and all of our paid subscribers. If, for example, we wanted to, and in this case, we've also, here, I'll undo this for a second. This was from the last webinar. So right now, we've selected all of our free subscribers, all paid subscribers, and for the web, all free and all paid. So this is just going to send to absolutely everyone. You can see here kind of the total recipients. Web, because it's just going out into the web, we don't actually know how many recipients it would be. There's not really recipients when you're posting to the web. It's just public. If we, for example, wanted to only send to our free subscribers, we would just uncheck this free subscribers button, and now we're only sending to 5 people. If, for example, we wanted to send to only free and not send to our paid, we would just uncheck paid. Where things get really fun is when you get into the segment section. So say we wanted to undo both of those, but say I only wanted to email the people who I signed up from my Instagram ads. I could go into the segment section, select the Instagram paid subs, and now I'm sending to the 167 subscribers that, okay, it looks like maybe there's 4 of them that have unsubscribed. But I'm sending to 163 of the people who signed up through Instagram. Alternatively, say I wanted to send all of my all of my subscribers, but I wanted to exclude those people who came from Instagram. I could go in here and exclude those Instagram users, and so now it's sending to 194 minus the Instagram subs. Web is similar. It's a little bit less complicated. You're doing free, you're doing paid, and then you can also, if you have multiple tiers for your paid program, you can have a little bit more granularity on which users you're showing this content to. So you could, if you had like a bronze, silver, and gold tier, you could say, sorry, only show this to my premium subscribers, but specifically only show this content to the people who are on like the gold tier. And if they're not on the gold tier, so if they're on silver, bronze, or free, it's going to say, hey, in order to view this content, you have to subscribe and upgrade to the gold tier. That's a good question. So, by default, you won't be able to send to unsubscribed users. I will show you what that looks like in the subscriber section once we get to that after this portion of the presentation. When we look specifically at subscribers, so if you hold tight, we'll get to that in a moment. But anybody who's unsubscribed, you don't have to do anything special with. We're automatically going to account for those users. So because we have selected email as one of the channels in which we're sending, we're going to have the email settings up here. So from here, we can set a subject line. If we want to A/B test, so by default, it's going to look like this. If we want to A/B test that subject line, we can check this box and indicate how long we want the test to run for. At the conclusion of that test period, in this case, it will send to the winning. It'll send the winning variant to the rest of the list. So take that into account. You know, if you always send at 8 a.m., but you want to run a 60-minute A/B test, you're going to want to send start the send at 7. It's going to run for 60 minutes, and then at the end of that 60 minutes, it's going to choose the winner based on a statistically valid sample or whichever one has the higher open rate if there's no statistical validity to it. For email, if you remember, we have these icons here. These are showing up on the email because we have these options checked. If we wanted to hide the social share links as well as the like and comment buttons, we could do that, and now those are going to be hidden. It's more or less a design choice, but that's how you set that. Because we're also posting to the web, we're going to have these web settings. So in this case, we have the URL slug that we can modify and edit. If we want to change the thumbnail, we can do so here. We have the ability to capture emails in a couple different ways from users. One would be through a pop-up. So you can set a pop-up if you want. If you want to gate it so that only subscribers can even view the content, it's going to show up a gate when they hit the page saying, in order to view this content, you must be subscribed. So both are ways that you can passively increase your subscriber list by posting your content to the web. If we want neither one, you can just select none, and people are going to be able to read it without interruption. Obviously here, comments, pretty self-explanatory. You can set the comments and choose the different visibility of who you want to be able to comment. So paid subscribers only, all subscribers. You can hide the comment section on this post entirely or lock the comments if they get too rowdy and out of hand. If you're a marketer who's or interested more in SEO and optimizing your content for discovery in search engines like Bing and Google, you can go through here and really fine-tune the way that your articles are going to show up in the search engine, as well as you can actually customize how they're going to look like on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So if you want, maybe your default title for your website is one thing, and you want an SEO optimized title for search engines, and then you want maybe like more of a clickbaity title for social media, you could actually have those 3 different titles depending on the audience, which is really, really powerful. And lastly, before we get to the review and sending stage, by default, all posts that you publish to the web are going to show up on your archive. So just to remind, this is the archive here. If I go to the main page, this is the archive down here. So these 5 posts, these are featured posts. But by default, all of the posts you publish to the web are going to show up in your archive list. If you want to hide from that archive list, you can just check this box. Alternatively, if you want to feature it, you can check this box. Finally, we move to the review stage. This is where it's going to show you where you're publishing to and who your audiences are. It's going to show you the post title, thumbnail, kind of just a review of what you've set, and then the settings around when you send. If these look good, we do recommend going to this preview menu. If you have somebody you need to send for a review, you can actually send this link to them, and it's going to show them a preview in their browser of what the web page looks like. And if you want to send a test email to somebody, maybe a superior or a friend, you can also do that through this menu next to this preview button. You can just enter their email there. Again, if you want to simulate a subscriber so that it looks exactly like it's going to look if that recipient received it, you can simulate the subscriber by typing their email in here. Once these are all set, you'll send the test email and check your inbox, and you'll see that in there. Once you're ready to go, hit schedule. You can choose a time to schedule. So a little menu comes up here with the calendar. Otherwise, if you're ready to publish now, you can hit that, and then when you hit the publish now button, it's going to send right away. So we've gone through settings, we've gone through the editor, and we've gone from publishing content to, from drafting content to publishing content. What comes next for the next half hour or so is going to be working through this menu on the side where we go into these various features around audience, kind of your audience settings, publishing settings, and then your growth settings. We'll finish out with a quick overview of some of the paid features that are not included on the trial, but you may want to use if you're trying to monetize and make a side hustle or business from your newsletter. Yes, optimized time is available based on your past sending behavior. So if I go here, schedule for later. That's weird. Why is this not? I believe that when it normally shows up, we might have moved this. No, I don't. Usually there's like a little menu here that shows the best time to schedule. Maybe this article doesn't have enough. This publication may not have enough posts in order to get that to show up, but it does show up usually. Once you have a history for us to understand like when the best sending time is. Cool. So yeah. Any questions here? Let's see. Picture on the archive post is where. The picture on the archive post is your thumbnail, so that's going to be what you set by adding this thumbnail. Cool. All right, we got those questions covered. So moving to the back half here, under your audience settings, we're going to start from the top. You have these subscribers where you can basically see your list. Just a quick overview here. Status: active means subscribed, inactive means unsubscribed. If you set any tags, you'll see the tags that the user is a part of here. The tier, so free or premium, and then the date that they subscribed and how they subscribe. So this taxonomy works in that direct none is the normal source medium. So if you're used to Google Analytics, it's the exact same, UTM source and UTM medium. And then this first word is basically how they came into your newsletter. So in this case, these users, which were me, subscribed on the website, on the beehiiv website, and then this is the UTM parameters. If they came through something like the referral program, it would say referral program. If they came through an embed form, it says embed, and so forth. If I click on one of these subscribers, you can see all of the information about them, quick links to specifics around their user, the tier that they're on, when they subscribed. We mentioned custom fields earlier, so custom fields allow you to collect custom data about users, so things like first name, last name. In this case, I'm collecting their dream destination, and that is all stored here. These are all available and accessible to be used within the newsletter to customize the content. Again, tags and automation history is there. Over here, you can see the different actions that these users have taken. So in this case, because this is me, it's you can see some of it, but just all the emails, any referrals I've made, any kind of general events that I've triggered, and so forth. If, for example, I wanted to unsubscribe or kind of change any of the settings around a specific user, this menu allows you to unsubscribe them, give them complimentary paid subscription, add them to an automation, reset their password, and delete them completely. The difference between deletion and unsubscribe is that if you unsubscribe, they're going to still stay on your list. They're just going to be marked as inactive. Deleting removes them from your account completely. Cool. So if I go back to the subscribers view, we can see here's where we're going to set up those custom fields. Apologies if you can hear that siren right on a main road. But under custom fields, you can create these custom fields where the user data can be stored. Again, tags are for tagging groups of users in a certain way, and then preferences. You can create a preference center. So the big use case here is like if you send maybe a daily newsletter, you want some users to be able to opt to only receive a newsletter weekly. They can go into their preferences and change when how often, for example, they want to receive the newsletter. Preferences is a little bit more advanced, and so we usually just drop the documentation Again, if you have any questions about how to set up preferences, we're here to offer help. Segments. So we used segments before a second ago to look at, in the example of how to modify who you're sending to. But essentially, segments are ways that you can slice and dice your list in order to reach a specific group of users. So in this case, we create this test segment. There's three different segment types. Static is going to create a list of users at a given point in time, and it's not going to update. Dynamic is going to create a list of users based on the criteria, and it will update not in real time, but every day. We're working on getting real time support very, very soon. And then manual is going to be, you can actually upload a CSV of emails, which will add them to a segment that you create manually. That doesn't change over time. It's just always going to be the same list. The use case there would be something like you do like an in-person event, you have a sign-up sheet, you want to add all of those users into your account, and you want them to kind of be part of like a discrete list that doesn't change, you can use that. So typically you're going to use a dynamic segment. So from here we're going to define the conditions. And if you've used other email tools, this probably is going to look fairly familiar, but essentially you can set conditions based on user attributes, engagement metrics and attributes, information about emails they've received, emails that we've sent to them, posts that they've engaged with, welcome emails, whether they've received it or not. Get rid of that. Opt-in email engagement, automation engagement, and then behavior that they've done. So have they referred users, have they responded to polls, and have they responded to surveys? Now, this is by no means the limit to what we offer. If you click on, for example, attribute, this attribute menu has another 15 or so ways in which you can then filter the data. So attributes, all of those are just categories. Within each of those, there's just like a bunch of different ways you can basically slice and dice your list. So it really would be impossible to enumerate kind of all of the different segments that you can build. They're literally infinite. The most valuable ones is like if you create criteria, you want to see like a certain list based on like behavior or where they came from. Definitely recommend using the status one to say status equals inactive or active. Pending is the state if you have double opt-in on, where it's like they've signed up but they haven't clicked the double opt-in. So they're not going to receive emails, but they're not unsubscribed at the same time. They're just kind of in like an in-between state. Moving to automations, we have this welcome series automation set up as an example. So if I go into the workflow, it's going to show me the outline. So in this case, I have a trigger. All automations start with a trigger, followed by actions, and then you have time delays and flow control. So you have your trigger. That means somebody takes an action. We're going to cause that to do something. You can have a delay. You could have a flow control or like a split immediately. But basically, you're going to have your trigger, and then something happens. So whether it's going to be a delay or an email, you can set up the email here. And basically, set up these journeys that users are going to take. So in this case, user signs up, they receive this email, and then there's a 3-day delay. And then, for example, if I wanted to send them another email, I could just drag and drop email here. And then, I had email. It's just gray because I hadn't configured it. I could send another email. And then if I wanted to do another time delay, I could do another time delay. And then if I wanted to do a true-false split on like the condition, like did they open an email, I could do that. So email, there's so many things here you could do, like days without opens, you could do days without clicks, you can just choose any of the things there. But essentially, from here, you would basically, if for whatever reason, if this suited your purposes, you could split your users down specific journeys, and this really just makes it super, super flexible in like what you can do and the experiences that you can provide your users. Before I move on from here, I do like to show the breadth of triggers that we support. So this is really kind of one of the most powerful parts of the entire platform, and that it allows you to really create experiences and automate pretty much anything. So if we go into trigger, we have this list here, and it's pretty comprehensive. So when a user, you can trigger things when a user signs up for the first time. Email submitted sounds like signed up, but it's very different. This is if you have something like a custom page and you want users to be entered into an automation when they submit an email, even if they've already been subscribed. So maybe you're offering a lead magnet, and some of your users may resubmit their email even if they've already been subscribed. You'd use the email submitted trigger. Survey submitted means they submitted a survey. We'll show you what surveys are in a moment. Responded to a poll, referred a user, joined or exited a segment, upgraded or downgraded their premium subscription, and then for anything else, if you're working across other tools, you can add users to automations via API. So if you're using Shopify, for example, and they buy a product, and you can just ping the API and add them to a post-purchase flow seeking a review or something like that, or literally anything. It could be like any platform that does anything. You just need to be able to ping the API, which you can do through no-code tools. So super powerful. Literally any experience you want to develop, you can do using that. Cool. So moving from automations, polls. We mentioned this before. I've shown how these work, but for example, if I hop in here, I created this trivia poll for my post about this like yacht that's super famous. So I have this, which is the longest sailing yacht in the world. Users, are shown the different options they can click, and then I can see the results here. What's really cool is if I click the share the results button, I can actually go to a platform like X, and I can drop that in here. And basically, by clicking the share, it's going to give us these like Wordle style results. So you can actually create organic social content from the results of these polls. Also super valuable if you're collecting things like, what should I write about? What do you want to hear more about? What type of content would be valuable? You can collect feedback that helps dictate your content publishing schedule. The other thing that we say we recommend using this for is like feedback. So at the end of your newsletter, say like, what did you think of this newsletter? You'll get like a baseline of responses, but it can help you monitor like which articles users really like. Maybe there's one that they didn't like so much, but it really helps you keep a finger on the pulse of your newsletter. The benefit here is that users really feel engaged. They can help you make the newsletter better, create social content. It's going to show the email clients that users are using that they're engaged in clicking on your content, which is really, really good for deliverability. So it's like kind of a sleeper feature. It's one of my favorites, but just so many benefits of using polls. Surveys are a functionality. It's basically our version of forms. And so with these, we have a couple different options. You can create a form. You can create any of these forms, and basically, well, we'll go into what they are first. So if I click into here and show you, this is the form I use for new subscribers. So give me a second while it loads. When a user subscribes, I have a subscribe flow, which I'll show you real quick. This will be helpful for context. So if I come in here and do ej@beehiiv.com, I'm subscribed. It's now going to enter. I'm now going to enter the subscribe flow, which is going to show me these kind of this experience. So this is our boosts feature. So these are noted by the sponsored button, and then these are recommendations that are organic. So it's going to ask me as a subscriber, would I like to also subscribe to these other tools? I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but if I were to check these, or if a subscriber was to check these, I get paid from these newsletters if they end up being like engaged, active subscribers. These are just organic ones. I get credit, but I don't get any compensation for these down here. So users can select that. It's just a great way to provide some value to users right up front, create some community with other publishers. If I hit continue, I'm now going to be dropped on this survey. And this is how we recommend users collect personal information through these surveys. By just having an email, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate than if you have multiple fields that you ask users to fill out. And so if you just get their email, you can then enter them in the subscribe flow where you can collect their personal information. I use this for advertising, and then I use this one to understand like what I should create content about. So we'll do EJ, and this is tied to that custom field, which is how I use that for personalization. And then I think my initial response here was like Tokyo. From here, it'll take me on the next stage to the upgrade page. So this is where I will then try to upsell users. This is our premium subscription feature. So in this case, I have one premium tier with a monthly option and a yearly option. And then I'm just going to skip this. We have a kind of multiple publications feature. So if you're running multiple newsletters and you want to like kind of promote them side by side, you can enable this screen, which will allow users to then subscribe to your other newsletters. And then you have the option to drop them anywhere you want. So that's like the fully configured subscribe and like post-subscribe experience. And so in terms of surveys, you can come in here, you can fill out, what the question is, the custom field the answer should be associated with. You can have multiple choice, you can have drop down, you can have, select multiple, options, and so forth. Responses are going to live here. You can see, what people have said, kind of the completion rate, etc. And then the messaging, the settings around like what the form should say and whatnot. What's really cool about this is that you can either have these forms stand alone. So one cool thing that you could do is like if you had a survey that you wanted to drop on social media, you could literally just take the form URL and share it on social media. And I'm logged in, it recognizes me, so it's kind of letting me in already. But if I went over here, in order to respond to the survey, a user is going to have to enter their email. So it can be a great way to get new subscribers as well as collect information that you could then use perhaps to create social content or just understand your audience better. So you can basically engage your audience that way. But there's also the ability to enable a specific survey as a welcome survey, a subscribe survey, or as an unsubscribe survey. So for example, I've had this enabled as a subscribe survey, but say I created a different survey and I wanted to understand why people were unsubscribing. I could create a survey and then set it as the unsubscribe survey, so when a user hits the unsubscribe button, it's going to take them to this survey, this form experience, and say, hey, like, why did you want to unsubscribe? Like, what wasn't I doing well enough? And that can be really, really critically valuable for understanding why you might be losing subscribers. Awesome. So moving from there, if you are using a third-party website for your front end of your website, we work just fine as a headless, headless tool for just email sending. And in that case, we have subscribe forms that you can just drop on your website. Usually, most website builders have a way that you can just drop some custom code. So if you want to use any of these different formats, this is going to be a full width form. This is going to be a set width form. It's going to only take up a certain amount of space on the site. And then usually what people are using are these slim embeds, which is just going to be the button and a field for collecting the email. And so, that works us through the audience settings. Before I move forward, I know Tony's been doing a great job answering questions in this chat. Cool. And just a heads up, I know there's some questions about like the support stuff. If you're on our free trial, you do get the full access to the paid support through our free trial. So I think most users here should be like pretty new users. Usually these sessions are marketed towards people who have just signed up in the last week. So if you have signed up in the last week, you're either on our trial or you have access to start the trial, which would mean you have full access to our support team, and we do that so that you guys can get up and running. And basically, if you complete the trial, or when you complete the trial, obviously it's a time based. So when you complete the trial, the goal is that you're fully up and running and don't necessarily need the support ever again, because hopefully the platform is working for you. So moving from our audience features to our grow features, we have a couple here. So one's the referral program. So if I go to one of my posts here, I can show you what that looks like in an actual email. So one of the widgets that I went over in the widget palette is our referral program widget. So it's just /referral, and it's going to drop in this referral program widget, which allows you to basically deploy a fully functioning referral program with one click. So within this section, so I have a referral program set up. It's got 4 different milestones. So 1, 3, I think 10 and 20, with the associated different rewards. And so as users refer different users, this is what gets updated. So if I referred one user, it'd say you currently have 1 referral, you are 2 away from earning, and then it would be like the 3 milestone reward. This is all set up under our referral program interface. You can set up your rewards here. You can set the milestones, etc. We have a full fulfillment tab. So once a user meets the criteria for that certain referral, they will show up in this view. So you can then figure out how to fulfill it. So there's tools like Printful where they just do on-demand printing. We work with a partner called Slingshot that does automatic fulfillment. So in this case, if you use something like Slingshot, they would give you a link and the email that would get sent to the user when they get to the certain tier it would have that link to say, hey, you've reached this certain tier of milestone. Click this link to redeem your tote bag or whatever. Um, and so yeah, we can help you with that certainly if that's what you want to do. It is it's an external service that is a separate fee, but can be really helpful for kind of taking the management of a referral program in terms of the fulfillment out of your hands. But yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Users share the link that's unique to them. If somebody subscribes using their link, they get credit for it, and we track that credit using a leaderboard, and you can see all of the stats around subscribers that have come from referrals right here. Separately, we saw recommendations a few minutes ago when I was on that pop-up screen. So these are my organic recommendations. I can come in here and add a recommendation based on anything. So say I want to do, we have a content tag called art. If I wanted to find art newsletters, I could type in art, and it's going to show me the top art newsletters. I can then either check them out or recommend them. Right now I'm recommending these 4 newsletters. This one's Air Travelers Club, Zillow Gone Wild. I've referred 92 and 74 subscribers respectively. I'm also referring, this is one of my other newsletters, and this is one of a longtime beehiiv users that I'm friends with. If I want to see who has recommended me, I can click this button, and I can see that Own the Watch has actually sent me 4 subscribers, and my other newsletter has sent me 0 from that one. I haven't marketed this one at all. But yeah, organic, just so you can reach out to folks who are also in beehiiv and say, hey, let's recommend each other. One of the value, we have a paid community, or part of the paid subscription is access to our community called the Hive. We have a full, like 3,400 people who are active paying beehiiv customers that are engaged in that community. There's a whole channel for like seeking collaboration. So if you want to, you can drop a note and say, hey, like I'm interested in more recommendations. Like, is anybody operating in the art space that I should recommend, and so forth. And you can find partners that way as well if you want to not just use the built-in tool. Magic links are great if you're working with partners or collaborating outside of beehiiv. So using the kind of same function of custom fields with other platforms. We have support for, I think, 14 different platforms where for example, this is how this platform PostUp does their custom fields. So if your counterpart was using PostUp, you could give them this link, and when they insert it into their newsletter, when a recipient receives the link, this is going to be replaced with their actual email. What this allows it to be is that when they click the link, our tool is going to essentially know who that subscriber, know what that email is, and it's going to subscribe them with one click. They don't have to re-enter their email. They don't have to do anything else. It's just a one-click subscribe. Makes it really clean and a really effective way to do promotions with people who may not be on beehiiv. And the whole list of who we support works there. If you want to also like add additional UTM parameters for additional tracking and understanding the growth there, you can do that under the advanced tab. I'm going to skip boosts for just a minute because I'm going to come back to our monetization features in a minute. The last thing I'll cover before monetization is our analyze or analytics tools. So we have really very powerful, I'd say, the most, if not one of the most powerful suites for analytics across the entire email marketing industry. So if I'm just extending this back so it shows my performance from all time, but you can see here, it's going to show me my performance, where users have come from, the breakdown of who's active, pending, and unsubscribed. Over time, you can see a graph of where users have come from and kind of how these emails are performing from an open rate, click-through rate perspective. If I click on performance, it's actually going to give me a deeper view of like where users are subscribing and emailing from, open rates based on these different segments, where my paid subscribers are coming from, and where referrals are coming from as well. Performance by source is going to just give me a big master table of like where all of these sources are, so I can see Facebook CPC, Meta CPC, etc. I can filter these by coming in here and adding filters if I want to narrow them down, but it's going to show the performance in terms of open rate, click-through rate, and many more metrics, based on each of the source. And then cohort analysis is a way for you to see. My data is not super robust here because I'm I haven't been actively sending, but this is going to show over time, as you acquire users, how many of those users remain active and remain engaged users, which means they've just opened one of your last open or click while not unsubscribing over the course of a month. So this is just like not, I haven't gotten a new subscriber, I guess, since April, but don't look at the data here. This is like not, I'm not actively sending this. So this isn't a great representation, but this will be much more actionable for one of your newsletters. And then we have a separate cohort analysis around getting click-through rate and like, the rate of click-through rate over time when a user signs up. Again, my data is kind of messy here because I'm not actively sending, but it should look much more interesting to an active sending newsletter. Post report is very similar, but instead of looking at subscribers, it's going to look at the post performance. So post just being those, published articles. So you can see the number of deliveries opened, just again, similar granular view. Content published to email, published on the web, views, clicks, web views, web clicks, and then top post is just going to show you that list, that big table view, and you can basically do that. The cool thing about this is all of this data is fully exportable, so you can go and you can click these dots and you can download the results. It's going to ask you the format, but you can download it in a bunch of different formats and run your own analysis on it. If you want to plug it into a visualization tool, you can do that. You can drop it into, a lot of people drop it into ChatGPT and have ChatGPT give them like the deeper analysis as well. Click analysis is great if you're running ads with an external partner. You can come in here and basically see what links are being clicked on, and you can use that to report back to external partners as well. So it can be useful. So as we wrap up over the next couple minutes, I want to just jump quickly into our monetization features. These will not be accessible through the free trial. We don't want people to get money like locked behind a paywall at the end of the trial period. So we require these to be part of a paid plan. The first one is going to be, I'll start with boosts on the grow side, because this is not technically like a feature that you need to like pay for, or you're getting paid for. But on the grow side of the marketplace, boosts are a way that you can essentially guarantee a specific cost per subscriber. So I would look at this as the opposite of like with Facebook. If you go into Facebook and you say, hey, I'd like to spend $100, you may just spend that $100 and get no subscribers. You may get 1, you may get 20. It's kind of unknown. With boosts, you put in when you create an offer, you put in an exact cost per subscriber you're willing to pay, and a budget. And basically, we put that offer out into our marketplace. Users who want to make money through the monetization feature or the sell side of boosts, will say, okay, great, I'm willing to recommend your newsletter for $2 a subscriber or $1 a subscriber or what have you. In that case, when somebody subscribes to the other person's newsletter, just like we saw in that pop-up, it'll say, sponsored. But if a user does sign up to your newsletter through that mechanism, and they are an active, engaged subscriber over the course of our probationary period, meaning that they're engaging with your content, basically you will, in that case, pay the $2 to that user, but that's like it's a set base payment. You're never going to pay more than that $2 per subscriber. So it's a way to guarantee performance at a certain set price. It's really, really quite incredible. If it sounds too good to be true, I guarantee you it's not. It's really quite amazing in the way that it works, and it's only made possible because we own all of the data from beginning to end, so we can really see and ensure the performance and what's going on there. But really, really powerful way to grow if you do have a budget. If you are looking to make money from your newsletter, you can work on the sell side of the marketplace, where you can come in and you can view offers that are available. So for example, Creator Spotlight is offering $2.40 per active subscriber. You can come down here and you can select different categories. So let's see, cybersecurity. So you're running a cybersecurity newsletter, there's tons of them here. They're willing to pay, it looks like around $1.60 looks to be like the going rate, but there's some that you can make a little bit more. You can select countries that you want to target. There's a bunch of tools in here to really, really nail down your audience. But in this case, if you do, once you apply to these boosts, you apply, you tell them why your newsletter would be a good fit, why you're interested in boosting. If they accept it, it'll start showing up in that post sign-up experience. When somebody subscribes, they go through the probationary period. When they complete that, if they are active, engaged subscriber, you then get paid that fee for basically just doing nothing, for clicking a couple buttons and growing your own newsletter. It's a great way to offset the cost if you are doing paid acquisition in other places. if you're making $1.60 per subscriber and it costs you $2 to subscribe to obtain a subscriber on Facebook, you can kind of do both. You can basically play that, offset the cost of your acquisition by, if you're getting a subscriber for $2 and you're making back $1.60, that subscriber actually only costs you 40 cents. And so if you know that your subscriber value is, $2 a year, you're basically going to 5 times your money on that specific, transaction within a year. So it's a really, really incredible way to know and really guarantee these growth loops. We have a kind of best of its kind ad network in the newsletter space. So yeah, yeah, got it. So yeah, I'm getting a question from Tony pointing out in the chat. So there's a question about these different offers. So breaking out these different offers. Um, there's two ways to do boosts. One is through the subscriber method, where somebody signs up and they see the pop up, and they click to subscribe. The other way is what we call email boosts. So very similar mechanism, but if you already have like a large list like Ranch, if you already have 8,000 people, and you're migrating them here, you're like, oh bummer, I can't take advantage of showing those offers to those 8,000 people who already subscribed. Well, that's not true. That's exactly what these other offers are for, and this email button means it's for an email boost, emailable boost. So in this case, uh, the reason why we have this separate is that there's like this, the nature of email, it's async, and so um, it's because the offer goes out into the wild, there's not really a way to pull it back once it's out there. And so what this does is this kind of creates a transaction where the person who set up the boost is saying, I'm willing to pay up to a certain amount at a, for example, $2.40, cost per subscriber. So in this case, if you were approved for their emailable boost, it means you can make up to $200 per send. I don't know what the math is on $2.40 per subscriber, but this basically protects both sides. So say you have a million people on your email list and they're willing to pay $2.40 per subscriber. If we didn't have this functionality, you could send to your million people and maybe 10,000 sign up, and then now this person's on the hook for $24,000. That would be crazy. And like this person is like, I'm just a small newsletter, I don't have $24,000 to pay. And you, as the million person newsletter list, you're like, well, I wouldn't have given you that visibility, and if I didn't think I was going to make $24,000. So and because it's async, because you're sending an email and you don't know when people are going to see it, there's not really a way to shut that offer off when it's reached a certain threshold. So the way that we solve this problem is to say at the front end of it, you can make up to this certain amount. So if you send this newsletter to 100 people and 20 sign up, you're going to make that 240 per sign up. So 20 times 240 is going to be what, $48. So in that case, you're way under this limit. You're going to make that full 240 per subscriber. If you had a million subscribers and you sent it out, and 10,000 signed up, uh, this basically makes you aware that like as the sender, you're not going to make $24,000. You're going to make up to that max payout, which in this case would be $200. So it's a way to balance the marketplace. But if you do have an existing audience, it's a way to basically monetize that existing audience through the same boosts tool. Um, the other question I had from Nabil was, let's see, could you remind me of that, Tony? Yep. So Nabil's question was on the other side of the marketplace, or I guess still on the side of the marketplace, was how can you make yourself more attractive to these people who are offering boosts? And the key is to really be showing that you have a valuable audience that they want to get in front of. And so that can be through talking about metrics in terms of engagement rates, explaining the exact niche that you fill and the target user that you're trying to target, why you are specifically relevant to that user. Obviously these opportunities are really, really valuable. And so people on the buy side, want to grow with like the most highest chance of getting legitimate, like good value adding users. And so they can be very discerning, but they also, want to make sure that they're not just like getting I guess, junk for lack of a better word. They don't want to just get people who are going to open emails but aren't part of their target audience, is what I mean. Not necessarily that those people are junk, but they want to make sure they're getting very, very targeted users that are going to help their newsletter growth over time. And so showing that you align with their vision is probably the best way. Um, there's not one kind of set in stone way. It's just basically like, why would you make a good partner for this newsletter? How does your audience align in a way that's going to make a mutually beneficial relationship? Before we get to the last thing, I know we're right at time. So if you have to jump, feel free to. This will be recorded, so you can come back and visit it. I really appreciate your time today. The last thing I wanted to cover real quick is our paid subscriptions, and I'll talk about ads. So we've talked a little bit about paid subscriptions over the course of the call, but essentially you can run a paid community. You can set your price per month, per year. You can set multiple tiers. You can do offers around like free trials, try for 7 days and then pay. You can also give offers, special offers to like special VIPs within your community. Say you want to give premium access to someone, but you don't want them to pay, you can do that. We have this whole infrastructure around showing your growth and your monetization, your MRR from this program. This is kind of competes with tools like Memberful, Patreon, and in some ways Gumroad. Lastly, we have the most developed ad network for newsletters on the market. When you join our premium plan, you'll start to get offers to place different ads within your newsletters from partners that we secure. So if you want to see some of the brands that we work with, brands like Netflix, HubSpot, BetterHelp, we go to, for publishers, it'll show some of the other ones here. CrowdStreet, Masterworks, Babbel, Brooklinen, Wander. These aren't fly-by-night names. These are brand name, household names that are going to really add some credibility to your newsletter, but also make you some money when users click through to, take advantage of those offers. And that, as I always, there's a ton to cover. I know I just kind of talked through a ton of different things. If you have more questions, and if Tony has some questions in the chat, I'm willing to stick around if, with whoever is willing to stick around to, to answer any remaining questions that are showing up. I think there might be, let's see, I might have another call, but I can be a couple minutes late. 3 minutes ago was that call. Oh, somebody, I will have to have him join in just a second. But yeah, do we have any questions, Tony? Cool. Awesome. Well, the one thing I always say is if this was useful, definitely consider upgrading and joining our premium community. So it's not upgrading just to join the community, but when you're ready to upgrade, part of one of the benefits you get is access to that paid community. You will be able to access, experts who are actively investing in their businesses. There's nobody who's just kind of like mailing it in and just not doing anything. It's like these are all people who are active. There's like dozens of messages a day, back and forth, maybe even hundreds. We have channels for cross promotions, design, email 101, growth tips, monetization tips, celebrations, feedback for your newsletter. You can give product feedback. There's all kinds of stuff. The other thing is if you do find yourself loving beehiiv and you want to share it and get rewarded for it, we have one of the best partner programs in the world. We will split revenue with you 50-50 from any customers that you refer to us. And so in your account, if you come up to the top here where it says share and earn, you can see you can join the partner program by opting into the terms of service, and you'll get your partner link. You can share that on socials. You can share that with people who may be interested in starting a newsletter. One of the easiest ways to earn some cash. With that being said, thank you again so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Without you showing up, this wouldn't be worth it because we would have no one to talk to. Really excited for what's to come with your newsletters and blogs and whatever your reason is for joining beehiiv. If you have any questions that you wanted to ask in a more private setting, please feel free to email me at ej@beehiiv.com. Happy to answer those and get you pointed in the right direction. Otherwise, our support channel is ready to help. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your time. Keep an eye out for some more of the webinars that we have over the next couple weeks. beehiiv.com/webinars. You can get some growth tips, design tips. There's all kinds of stuff coming up that will help your journey. With that being said, have a great day. Have a great, safe weekend. It's been a pleasure to spend the morning with you. And yeah, I hope that you guys find what you're looking for with Beehive. Have a great day.